We good on the drawings? Too bad if you're not. Okay. So let's do the same thing. We're gonna start with the heart. We're gonna go up into the neck and then into the arm on the first picture. But this is systemic veins, so the blood is now deoxygenated. I'm gonna switch to blue, okay? All right, so again, we start with the heart right here. Now, what vessel goes into the right atrium? The right atrium.
Superior and inferior semilunar.
The superior and inferior vena cava. Okay? So I am going to just start for now with the superior. We'll get into the inferior later. Okay? So this right here is the superior vena cava. It's going to split into two veins. This is going to be your brachiocephalic veins. This is the left brachiocephalic, and this is the right brachiocephalic. Now, we heard that in the arteries. What did it split into in your arteries?
Common carotid.
The right common carotid and the subclavian. I want everybody to hear me when I say this. There is no such thing as a carotid vein. Carotid means artery. The analogous vein is called the jugular. Okay? So this is going to also split, but this is not the carotid. This is called the right internal jugular, and this is going to be the right subclavian. So notice that we wrote internal jugular, means it's going to go like to the inside of the brain. There's also a branch coming off the subclavian that's called the right external jugular. Okay? Now, same thing as the arteries. Your subclavian is going to go under the clavicle. What do you think it's going to change its name to? The right axillary. Now, the axillary in the arteries, we said change names as soon as it crossed the body right here. It's going to be a little bit different in the veins because it branches. Okay? So you're going to see that the right axillary is going to have two branches coming off of it, or actually it splits into three. So you're going to see that there's a vessel that comes out laterally, there's a vessel that stays in the middle, and there's a vessel that comes medially. Okay? The one that goes laterally is called the right cephalic, which I absolutely hate because the word cephalic means head, but this has nothing to do with your head. Okay? The middle one or sorry, the medial one, this one over on this side, is called the right basilic. And it's this middle one right here that becomes the brachial. Okay, so this is the right brachial. Now, what happens is, this is all in your arm area. When we get to the elbow, you're gonna see that the cephalic and the basilic join up with each other and form a loop. This loop that we see here is called the median cubital vein. Has anyone ever donated blood or got blood drawn from their elbow right here? This median cubital vein is where that blood is coming from. Okay? All right, now continuing with the brachial, what happened in the arteries when it got to the elbow? It split. So it's gonna also split. It's gonna be the same vessels. This is gonna be the right radial and the right ulnar. And it's going to do the same thing in the palm. It's gonna loop together and form the right palmar arch. Okay? And that's it for the superior vena cava arm area. Okay? Let's do the same thing with the abdominal area that we did before in the arteries. So this right here, I'm just going to start with the heart up here. But instead of the superior vena cava coming down from it, this is the inferior vena cava. Okay? Now the inferior vena cava is going to do the same thing as the aorta. It's going to cross the diaphragm. Luckily for you, it doesn't change its name at all. It's still called the inferior vena cava down here. Okay, so it hasn't changed its name at all. But what happens is immediately after you see it crossing the diaphragm, you're gonna see that there's gonna be a bunch of vessels going into it. These are all called the hepatic veins. Now, remember in lecture, we said that there was a hepatic portal system, right? What was the purpose of the hepatic portal system?
Filter the blood.
Filter before it goes
To filter and clean the blood from like the organs before it goes to the vena cava, right? So we're going to look at that portal system really quick. So hepatic veins means that it's coming from the liver. So this is coming from the liver right here. Okay, so these are your hepatic veins going out of the liver. I want to point out that the blood flow is going in this direction. Okay? So we said that the whole purpose of the liver is to clean the blood. That means that there's got to be vessels going to the liver. Okay? So the vessel going into the liver right here, this is called the hepatic portal vein. Notice that hepatic portal vein is not the same thing as hepatic vein. The word portal makes all the difference. The portal is going into the liver. The hepatic veins are coming out of the liver. Okay? Now, This hepatic portal vein is gonna take blood from all of our internal organs. So the first vessel that we're gonna see is it's gonna come from the small intestine. Does anyone remember the artery that went to the small intestine?
Mesenteric. Inferior.
This was the superior mesenteric. This portal vein is also going to take blood from your spleen. So what do you think this is called?
Splenic.
Splenic. And a branch off the splenic is a vessel that comes from your large intestine. This is called the inferior mesenteric. Okay? Now, remember how in the abdominal aorta, we said there were paired and unpaired branches, right? This is basically the entirety of your unpaired branches, okay? So if we look at this vena cava right here, there are your paired branches as well. And they're the exact same paired branches as your arteries. There is a slight difference though, okay? In the right side, it's exactly the same. You have the suprarenal, the renal, and the gonadal, okay? So this is the right suprarenal, the right renal, right gonadal, right? They're the exact same as the arteries. It is the same on the it's the same vessels on the left, but they just branch a little bit differently. What you're going to see is on the left side, the renal comes out to the kidneys. Then coming above that, that's where you have the suprarenal. And then going below that, this is the gonadal. So you can see that it's the same three names, it just branches a little bit differently. Okay? Any questions on this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a purpose as to why it's not like the exact same? That it branches like
I'm sure
that?
there is, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Because God made it that way. All right. So the vena cava does the same thing as the aorta in that it splits in the pelvic area to the common iliacs. So that's, there's not enough room to draw that over here. So I'm just gonna continue over here. We're saying that this right here is the inferior vena cava, and it's going to split. It's everything that you saw in the arteries is exactly the same in the veins with only one exception, okay? So the inferior vena cava splits into the right common iliac, left common iliac. What do the common iliacs split into?
Internal, external.
Internal and external. So this is the right internal iliac and the right external iliac. It then crosses the inguinal ligament. What does it turn into now?
Moral.
the femoral. Then the femoral is gonna go behind the knee. What is its name now?
Popliteal.
This is the popliteal. Then the popliteal goes into the shin and splits. What are the splits called? The anterior and posterior tibial. Then coming off the posterior tibial, you had a tiny branch. This is the fibular. Okay? So if you look at this picture, it is exactly the same as the arteries. There's only one difference. What was the branch that came off the femoral in the arteries? It was called the deep femoral. Here, instead of the deep femoral, you're going to have a vein coming down called the great saphenous. Just as a little trivia, the great saphenous is the longest vein you have in your entire body. If you were to have trouble with a vessel and you needed a graft from somewhere else, this is the most common site they take the vessel from. Okay? So that's it. Those are the only veins you guys are responsible for knowing. Just that.
That's it.
There are no veins in the brain. I mean, there are, but they're associated with the dura, and it gets kind of ugly, so we're not even gonna try for that. Yeah.
For the great, is it support?
Saphenous.
How do you spell that?
Saphenous. Okay, so that was fun. That's like the 1,000th time I've done that this week. So the rest of class, you guys have pretty much open class or open study for learning the vessels. You have these models that you can look at. There's this wire guide that I highly recommend you look at. There are these models over here. There's those torso guides. I'm also going to pull out the rat. The rat will be on, you will have to know vessels on it. If you look on your lab manual, page 94, the one with the long list, is the one you have to know on the models. The short list, 95, is what you have to know on the rat. So, I will take those out and so that you guys can look at them. I highly recommend that you grab gloves and look at the rat, because everybody complains. They're like, the rat was so hard, it didn't look like it was supposed to. Well, if you look at it and study it, then it does look like what it's supposed to, but it's not going to look like it's supposed to if you don't study it. So I will take those out and I'll put them